What if the greatest struggle in your life wasn't with the outside world, but within your own mind? Imagine this. You're lying in bed after a long day, exhausted but unable to sleep. A simple conversation you had earlier replays in your head on an endless loop. Did I say the wrong thing? Did they notice that awkward pause? What if they think I'm incompetent? The more you try to dismiss it, the more your mind clings to the thought, dissecting every possible interpretation. And just like that, you're trapped, not by reality, but by your own thoughts. Schopenhauer, one of history's most pessimistic yet profound philosophers, would have warned you, overthinking is not a sign of intelligence, but a trap that leads to misery. Left unchecked, the mind becomes its own worst enemy, turning minor concerns into unbearable burdens, paralyzing action with endless doubt, and distorting reality to the point of suffering. But why is overthinking so dangerous? And what did Schopenhauer mean when he said that the mind, if not controlled, can be a source of torment rather than wisdom? Let's explore 3 psychological traps of overthinking that Schopenhauer warned about. Traps that can cripple your decision-making, erode your peace of mind, and ultimately make life feel unbearable. Schopenhauer's philosophy is centered on the idea that life itself is suffering. He believed that human existence is driven by an insatiable will, a force that compels us to desire, chase, and crave things we believe will bring us happiness. However, once we attain them, satisfaction is fleeting. The next craving appears, and the cycle of wanting and suffering continues. But beyond external desires, Schopenhauer identified a deeper layer of suffering, one created by the mind itself. Unlike animals, which act on instinct and move on, humans have the ability to ruminate, to dwell on regrets, analyze failures, and anticipate worst-case scenarios. This, he argued, is both a gift and a curse. While our intellect allows us to solve problems and shape our future, it also has the potential to ensnare us in a self-made prison of thoughts. Overthinking, in Schopenhauer's view, is not deep contemplation or wisdom. It is a mental overexertion that leads to suffering. And the more we indulge in it, the harder it is to escape. The 3 traps of overthinking. 1. The illusion of control. Have you ever caught yourself overanalyzing every possible outcome of an event, an upcoming job interview, a difficult conversation, or an important life decision? Convinced that thinking about it more will somehow allow you to control the future? This is the first major trap of overthinking, the illusion of control. Schopenhauer believed that much of life is governed by forces beyond our influence, circumstances, randomness, and the unpredictable actions of others. Yet the overthinking mind refuses to accept this reality. Instead, it convinces itself that by obsessing over details, anticipating every scenario, and predicting every reaction, it can somehow bend fate to its will. But in reality, this does nothing but drain your energy and increase anxiety. Instead of preparing you for the future, overthinking detaches you from the present, making you feel restless and powerless. Schopenhauer argued that the key to peace is not trying to control what cannot be controlled, but rather learning to surrender to life's inherent uncertainty. The truth is, no amount of thinking will ever eliminate unpredictability. The more you fight it, the more exhausted you become. The wiser approach, according to Schopenhauer, is to focus on what you can control, your actions, your responses, and your mindset, and let go of the rest. 2. Paralysis by analysis. The mind is supposed to help us make decisions, but what happens when it thinks too much? Overthinkers often believe that if they just analyze every option thoroughly enough, they will find the perfect answer. But Schopenhauer warned that this excessive deliberation leads to something far worse than making a bad decision. It leads to indecision itself. This is what we now call paralysis by analysis, when the fear of making the wrong choice prevents you from making any choice at all. Instead of moving forward, you remain stuck in a mental loop, doubting every possible outcome, second-guessing yourself, and postponing action. Schopenhauer argued that overthinking distorts reality, making even simple choices feel monumental. The mind fixates on what could go wrong, creating fear where none existed before. The result? Missed opportunities, wasted time, and a life filled with hesitation. His advice was simple but profound. Accept that no decision is ever perfect. Every choice carries risk, and there will always be unknowns. But life is meant to be lived, not endlessly debated in your head. As he famously said, "To overcome difficulties is to experience the full delight of existence, and the only way to overcome difficulties is to act." 3. Self-imposed misery. Schopenhauer had a particularly grim view of human nature. He believed that suffering was not just an external condition, it was a state of mind. And nothing amplifies suffering more than the habit of dwelling on past mistakes and perceived failures. Overthinkers tend to magnify their problems, replaying embarrassing moments, regrets, and failures in their heads, as if reliving them can somehow change the past. A single awkward conversation becomes an unbearable humiliation. A minor mistake at work turns into a disaster. And the more we dwell on negative thoughts, the more they consume us, distorting reality and making life feel unbearable. Schopenhauer called this the pessimistic bias of the human mind, the tendency to focus on pain rather than joy, on failures rather than successes. He warned that the more we feed this cycle of negative thinking, the deeper we sink into self-imposed misery. But here's the key. The mind creates suffering, and the mind can also end it. The way out is not to suppress thoughts, but to recognize that not every thought deserves attention. Not every perceived failure is worth dissecting, and not every regret is worth carrying. The ability to detach from negative thoughts is the ultimate form of freedom. Escaping the overthinking trap. Schopenhauer's solution to overthinking wasn't to suppress thought, but to cultivate detachment, to step back and recognize when thinking turns into self-torture. Here's how. Shift your focus to the present. Overthinking is almost always about the past, regrets, or the future, anxieties. Schopenhauer suggested that true peace comes from fully immersing yourself in the present moment. Embrace action over endless reflection. Instead of being trapped in mental loops, break the cycle by doing. Even if the action isn't perfect, it's better than drowning in hypothetical fears. Accept uncertainty as part of life. Schopenhauer believed that suffering comes from resisting life's unpredictability. The sooner we accept that not everything is in our control, the more we free ourselves from the prison of overthinking. Schopenhauer's warning is clear. Your mind should serve you, not control you. The more you entertain endless thought loops, the more you feed a monster that thrives on your own fears. So ask yourself, are you thinking your way to wisdom, or are you just thinking yourself into despair? The next time your thoughts try to drown you, remember, you have the power to step away. The mind can be a cage, but it can also be the key to your freedom. The choice is yours.